Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. If you saw my last video, you'll know that we made this small milk carton style box from one sheet of A4 cardstock. Today we're going to be making this larger box, which is the 1-inch display panel at the front. The size of this box is 3.5 by 3.5, and this box portion here is 5 inches in height. This box will take approximately 2 sheets of A4 or US letter cardstock, so let's put the box together. We'll start by making the back and the 2 sides. You'll start with a piece of cardstock which is 10.5 by 8. Along the 10.5 inch side, score at 3.5 and 7. Make a pencil mark along the top edge at 1 3/4 and 8 3/4. Rotate the cardstock. I've got my pencil marks on the right hand side here. Score at 1/2 and 5.5. We're now going to put in the lines that we'll cut along to create the shaker or display front of the box. You might want to use a pencil and ruler for this, or you might want to use your score tool, but this is going to indicate the lines that we're then going to cut away. At 1.5 inches, score down to the 1 inch mark down the left hand side, or make a pencil line, and do the same at 4.5 inches down to the 1 inch mark. Rotate the cardstock 180 degrees. At 3.5 inches, score down to the 1 inch mark down the left hand side, and repeat at 6.5 inches. And we're then going to join up these 2 lines. So I'm going to rotate my piece. I've got my first set of lines here on the left hand side. I'm going to put my score tool in at 1 inch, and then when I get at 1.5 inches down, I'm going to score between the 2. I'm going to rotate the piece 180 degrees and just do the same. So I've got running my score tool down at 1 inch, and then when I get to the 3.5 inch mark, I can join up the 2 score lines. So these are going to be cut lines. If you'd prefer to do that with your pencil, then that's okay. We'll now create our additional score lines, and these are going to be in the first and the third square at the top. We're merely going to create a triangle by scoring from the pencil mark at the top edge of the cardstock down to the bottom left hand end of the score line, or down to the center point here where the score lines intersect. So at the bottom right hand side of that square. So place my stylus on the pencil mark, rotate my ruler and score. Do the same on this side, and then repeat on this square at the end. Remove any pencil marks, fold and burnish along your score lines. And when you come to fold and burnish the diagonals, these are going to be valley folds. So this is the back, will be the sides of the box, and then the top of the box will fold in like so at the sides. We'll start by cutting up each of the score lines within the 1/2 inch tab at the bottom. These are going to be the glue tabs on which we will stick the base element of the box, and then just take a wedge from the ends of each of these tabs. We're now going to cut along the pencil line or score line to remove the 1 inch strips here. You might want to use your scissors, your craft knife and ruler. If you've created score lines, make sure that you cut away the score line because it will give a neater finish. We're now going to create the front top of the box. This will need 1 piece of cardstock which is 3.5 by 4.5. Along the 3.5 inch side, score at 1, and along the 4.5 inch side, score at 1/2 and 4. Fold and burnish along all of the score lines. We're going to split each of the 1/2 inch tabs by cutting up the score line like so, and in the bottom 1 inch section take a wedge from each end, rotate and do the same on the opposite side. This piece is going to form the top roof of the box like so, and then come down to create the top part of the aperture. I can take a wedge from the top end of the longer tab, and then I'm just going to lay the piece over the top like so. Take a pencil and I'm going to extend the score line into the tab so I can see the shape that I need to cut this end of the tab so that it slots and adheres nicely into this piece without affecting the score line of the triangle. If I flip the piece over, you should now see that my score line is not being affected by this tab. I'll do the same at this side. Take a wedge from the top, sit the tab over the top and extend the score line. And then you've got a starter which you can then adjust as necessary. Now I'm going to adhere this into this left-hand panel. I'm more concerned with this 1 inch panel lining up. I'm going to use that as my starting point. That will be the front portion of the box. The bottom portion of the box is a piece which is 4.5 by 4.5. Along one 4.5 inch side, score at 1/2 and 4. Rotate, and along the remaining 4.5 inch side, score at 1. Fold and burnish. This 1 inch section is going to make a bar across the front of the box like so, and then this piece is going to flap down to form the base. We'll start by cutting up each of the score lines within the 1/2 inch section to split the tabs. For the top smaller 1 inch section, we can take a wedge from either end, and then we're going to completely remove this section and this section by cutting along the score lines up to the horizontal. And this portion that's left behind is going to be the base. Add glue to this small glue tab here and adhere this piece into place. You can see what will happen is these pieces will be joined. This will create the base, and that is creating the front of our shaker carton. We're going to now create the divider section, which is going to split the front acetate section and the back of the box. For the divider section, you'll have a piece which is 5 inches by 7 inches. On all 4 sides, score at 3/4 of an inch, and along the 7 inch side, score at 1 3/4 and 5 1/4. Fold and burnish the 3/4 of an inch score lines as mounting folds, and the internal 1 inch score line is going to be a valley fold. So the top and bottom sections will look like this. Hold your piece in a portrait orientation. We'll start by removing the 4 corner squares. Next, we're going to cut up each of the score lines within the 3/4 inch tab up to the horizontal. The piece is going to sit inside the window that we've created. This top element is going to fold forward, and these pieces will sit like so. This will sit back. This piece is going to come forward and sit like so. So this is how the piece is going to sit inside the front of the box. The next thing you want to do is to get your window decorated, add any of your DSP, etc, etc. We're now going to stick our divider into place, and what I'm going to do is then add the acetate to the outside of the box. It's much easier method of construction to add the acetate on the outside, and in particular if you then want to add shaker elements into your front display. You will notice I'm using different cardstock. The reason is I filmed gluing the box together, and the method of gluing it together was slightly out of order and I wasn't happy. I've reconstructed the box completely as the previous elements of the video you've seen. My divider is cut. I haven't added any decoration because this is merely for demonstration purposes, and I'm going to slot this into the video now. So apologies that it looks slightly disjointed, but I'm going to show you an easier way than I'd originally come up with to put the divider into place. The divider is going to sit in between your aperture slots like so. Roughly position your divider into place, and you may find that you need to trim these tabs top and bottom so that they don't interfere with the score lines. So if you need to, you can take however much you need to. Mine needed about 1/4 of an inch trimmed off, so I'm going to do that either side. I'm going to start by adding glue onto the long tab here and these two shorter tabs, and then position my divider into place so that it sits equidistant across the aperture top to bottom, and it's as near as possible but not coming inside the aperture at this point. Now you could make the divider, this middle section of the divider, slightly shorter, but I felt with the elements that I wanted to add into the dividing section, by having a little bit beyond the bottom and the top of the aperture, it just gave a nicer display look to the piece. I'm going to position that in to place. You can bring the long tabs up to the score line at the front, and you should find that the depth of here means that the piece doesn't come into the gap, as it were. So get that down into place. Obviously take your time to try and get it as equidistant as possible. Mine's slightly lower at the bottom than it is at the top, but I'm okay with that. Once that side is stuck in neatly, we can now add glue to the front sections of the divider and adhere the front top and the front bottom section into place. Now you can obviously do these one at a time. So I will add my glue onto the front of the top section and pull that around. Try to keep the piece as horizontal as possible, and then we can do the same for the bottom. Pull up this piece. That's all glued into place. Once this side is adhered, we can now pull up the back and secure this piece into place. And what I would do is just pull forward the tabs on the front and the bottom section, and we're going to start by adhering the tabs to these sections here. This just makes it easier for everything to come together. So we're going to get that secured into place. Like so, and then we can add glue to this top section going right up to the score line, the bottom section going right up to the score line, and this section here, and then we can pull up the back and the remaining side of the box and adhere that into place. So take your time to get everything lined up, and then once you're happy that that's aligned, flip the box over and go in and burnish down the tab, this long tab here, the tab at the top, and then go in from the bottom and burnish the tab at the bottom. And once that is all lined up and secure, we can then add glue onto our tab here and then join up this top section. And again, once you're happy that's in line, you can go in and burnish from the inside. So that gives you a nice, neat front section. Then we can tip the box up, and then I can fold down these tabs, add my glue, and then flip the base over and get that into place. I'm now going to add my acetate. The acetate was scored at 1.5 inches, rotated 180 degrees, and then scored at 1.5 inches again. And you do want to make sure you get a nice crisp burnish along the score lines, because it will improve the look of the box. I'm going to add my red liner tape onto the acetate. Now obviously if you are adding shaker elements, you want to add those now. The main part that I want to make sure that I get in place neatly is where the acetate sits on the corner, and make sure it sits on squarely, but obviously we can tidy anything up with a frame. So that sits nicely on there. It is a bit askew here, but not to worry, because the frame's going to go on the outside to cover that. In terms of the handle, I can bring in the box that I've made. You can see that I've added an inch onto this panel here, so it's become an extension of the roof. If you want to have a separate handle, I'll demonstrate on my second box. This piece is 3.5 inches long. Determine how high you want the handles. You might want a really tall handle. You might want to make it rounded and make it more of a bag style handle. That's entirely your choice. This, for instance, is 1 inch, and then I've added a 1/2 inch on for my glue tab. I've scored at 1/2 inch, and then I would add the handle into place behind the top panel like so. I've now decorated the outside of the box, and in the end I didn't go with the frame to cover the acetate. I actually made the side panels cover the entirety of the box. So the acetate is actually enclosed under this section. Overall, I'm really pleased with how this box has come out, and I hope you've enjoyed today's project. If you have done, please hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. And until next time, thanks for watching.